So welcome everyone who has come to Gaia House today to celebrate our 40th anniversary. We've got well over 40 people in the hall here, and people joining us also online. So welcome to everyone who's joined us in this live stream event to celebrate our 40th anniversary at Gaia House. Thank you for coming and giving this your time today to celebrate with us this pretty momentous occasion. I don't know if 40 years ago, Christina and others imagined that we would be here 40 years later in a much expanded building with thousands of people coming every year to benefit from the teachings of the Dharma, practice of meditation. But here we are. And it's just so lovely to see these warm, grateful faces and to be meeting you all and speaking with you all and coming together today to mark this really unique occasion and to just celebrate everything that we've achieved together. Now, I'm not going to speak very much about the journey because we've got Christina here who has walked this from the very beginning. And so on behalf of everyone here, thank you so much, Christina, for coming today and go out, and Kirsten here is going to lead us through a ceremony of celebration outside so we can enjoy some of this beautiful weather. Thank you so much, Christina.
Thank you. So I would really like to join in welcoming you, and it's a delight to be here. I'm so glad that we could do this. And it is a celebration of something that's born of so many people's goodwill. So I'd like to suggest that we start this with a meditation period to arrive together. So if you can, just finding a posture for your body that feels supportive and embodied intentionality of wakefulness, of care. And a conscious sense of arriving in the body, arriving in this moment, this unique moment. Just mindful of the body sitting, the body sensing, the body listening, and the body breathing. And the quietude around you. And cultivating a sense of appreciation. An appreciation of this space, its loveliness, its quietude, all that it offers to so many. room. Likely each person having contributed in some way, large ways, small ways, contributed their generosity, their goodwill in creating this space. Those who are more distant, not present just now, but who hold Gaia House dearly in their hearts, who have also contributed in so many ways to their goodwill, their efforts, their motivation in creating this space. To you in your lives, who support you, who care for you, that you care for. Trusting that our practice, our path, all that we have learned contributes to, in small ways, large ways, to their well-being. Appreciating the thousands of people who have come here to practice, to learn, to cultivate quietude. All of those who have served at Gaia House as part of this community, this family. Appreciating how much this space is born of collective goodwill, dedication, perseverance, and kindness. appreciating what it is to have the precious opportunity to touch the landscape of quietude, of kindness, May all beings near and far, those we know, those we don't know, be at peace within themselves. In kindness and generosity. May all beings live in peace. So I'd like to tell you the story of Gaia House. Some of it you will know, some of it you won't know. And quite frankly, 40 years is a lot of remembering to do. I mean, today we celebrate the 40th anniversary of Gaia House, but actually the story of Gaia House goes back earlier than that. When I, along with Christopher Titmuss and a number of other people, first came back to England in the mid-70s, having spent, quite some years in Asia, practicing, learning, developing, growing, in some mysterious way, I still don't entirely understand, we found ourselves teaching. We were living in a community in Kent with a group of like-minded people also coming back from Asia, not quite knowing how to live in the West anymore, not quite knowing what we were doing. And then there were requests to teach and to have retreats. So for a few years, we rented some very obscure and rather weird places to hold retreats in. And quite frankly, I have no idea how people even found out about them. This was pre-internet age, there was no Google. I still can't quite figure out how people ended up on those retreats, but people came. And it was very clear there was a hunger and a thirst to learn and to practice. And the Dharma offered seemed so much to people. So after several years of these first kind of hesitant and stumbling steps, we decided it was time to have our first Dharma home. So we rented a farmhouse in Wiley in Wiltshire from someone who was quite senior in the British Army. It was an old farmhouse, and he would make periodic visits. He didn't quite know what we were doing there. He knew it wasn't a family home, but we seemed to be fairly harmless. So he would make periodic visits just to check up on whether we were taking care of his property or not. And of course, we were holding retreats all this time. So whenever we knew that the sergeant major was coming, we would have everybody do standing meditation. And that seemed to go down quite well with him. He could relate to people standing up. We're looking really to deepen in the path. And we were outgrowing our place in Wiley in Wiltshire. So at that time in 1983, there seemed to be enough goodwill and support and, enough money to actually buy the old vicarage in Denbury. I think it was called Glebe House. And again, things were, it was really loved by many people. I mean, it was strange at times because at that time, the prison here was an open prison. So, with some frequency, prisoners would decide to go AWOL, cross our gardens, pursued by prison officers with dogs, going through people doing walking meditation, and, and then they'd be gone. we had kind of strange relationship, I think, with the village. You know, we were such a sort of exotic thing and weird thing that, you know, in a small English village, people didn't really understand. So, you know, we were somewhat the target of the youth in the village, who would make occasional forays into the house and grounds to, you know, pull things off notice boards and things like that. But we had a reasonable relationship. And we were there for quite a while. You know, we built a few kutis. It was very crowded. It was very full. You know, the managers used to have to sleep in the kitchen during retreats, you know, and it was really body to body in the dorms. Things like single rooms were just part of people's fantasies, you know. There were no such thing as single rooms. And people seemed, I don't know, happy enough to accept those conditions, to work with those conditions. But it became clear that we were, again, once more, outgrowing where we were. So we had a grand plan. We were going to do some building, do some extension. And then suddenly we got the news that this place was coming on the market. And we thought, well, we should go and have a look, you know, before we start building. We should go and have a look. And we came here and, you know, this was, of course, as you know, a convent of a missionary order of nuns. And when we first came here, there were just a few very elderly nuns here, you know, who were so longing to get out, longing to go back to their mother house. This was simply an overwhelming piece of property for them to maintain. You know, they rattled around. It was freezing cold. It was brown. Everything was brown. Everything was brown. You know, this room was brown. You know, all of the hallways were brown. You know, it was, I mean, one had to have a look. We met the Mother Superior, who was a lovely woman. We did a tour of the grounds first. We were so excited. There was a cemetery. You know, most prospective buyers of big estates don't get excited about cemeteries, but being kind of strange Buddhists, we thought, this is great. Now we've got a cemetery. And then we came in to have our first look here, and you know, we wandered down corridors. They seemed endless. You know, we opened endless doors. You know, we were used to you know, the old vicarage. You know, it had about 10 doors. You know, and we were opening all these endless doors to these rooms and getting lost. You know, and in the building and not knowing where we were, and it actually seemed so enormous. And at that time, of course, the Hermitage wing used to be known as the sick wing. Those of you who are staying there now. They used to be known as the sick wing because when nuns came back from their missionary work overseas with all kinds of ailments and diseases, they were quarantined in the sick wing, the Hermitage wing, so that they could recover. So we did this tour, we spoke with the Mother Superior, and of course the nuns weren't going to make the choices about who bought this place. This was in 1996, it was owned by the church. So it was going to be the church authorities. It was a sealed bid sale. And there was quite a lot of interest, you know, from various businesses who wanted to turn this place into apartments, schools. There was quite a lot of interest. By today's standards, it was incredibly cheap. And I remember we looked around and we thought, well, you know, there was a guideline price, which we thought maybe we could swing it if there was enough support and goodwill from people who were practicing. So we put in our bid, but the nuns didn't have a choice. And so we thought probably, you know, this is going to go to the highest bidder. So we were, you know, I remember sitting upstairs in the old vicarage in Denbury, Steve and Martine and Christopher and I were looking at each other, we were filled with doubt, can we do this? Do we have a future here? Is there enough support to make this happen? And we really wavered, we had filled with so much apprehension about making this what seemed like an enormous leap. And it was Stephen Batchelor who was the first one to say, I think we should do it. I think we should do it. We were still quite young at that time. We weren't used to running big organizations, big places. Stephen said, I think we should do it. And then we decided we would do it. We put in a bid, pretty convinced it wasn't going to be ours anyway. And then lo and behold, it was offered to us. We weren't the highest bidder. We don't know why, but we suspect that the nuns had a bit of a voice in here, because the Mother Superior said to us, I know you will take care of the cemetery. And at that time, of course, if you'd lived here as a nun, we don't own the cemetery. That's still owned by the order, I believe. Yeah, still owned by the order. And the deal at that time was that any nuns who had lived here could return here to be buried after they died. And so the Mother Superior said, I think, you will take care of the cemetery. So our bid was received, which was something of a shock to us, actually. Oh no, kind of that sense of, now we really have to do it. And of course, many people love the old vicarage in the village, and there's quite a bit of resistance around moving and losing, into this place, which at that time felt to some people to be very institutional, and too big. We're going to lose our kind of cozy family retreat center. But in any case, we decided to make that leap, and it felt somewhat overwhelming, I remember at the time. And so we were here, and we came around because we'd only seen it once. Newfound appreciation for the brownness, and all the things that were falling apart, and how much work was needed, and how are we going to do this? And so we put out an SOS call for help, and we were deluged with people who came here, to volunteer, to paint, to every room needed something doing to it, to paint, to create this space, to choose the lights. No, I chose these lights on the wall. I remember being in B&Q thinking, what will work here? I remember choosing these curtains, and this carpet, and I was going around to all these DIY centers and carpet centers, and purchasing things. So we were deluged with this army of volunteers who came with such goodwill. I think for 2 months. I think we did it in 2 months. The first wave of repairs, and trying to get ready to hold retreats, and would they fill up? Would we be able, we had to take out a mortgage, would we be able to repay the mortgage? It all felt very tenuous. But all these wonderful people came and helped. And I think it was in 2 months we were ready to open for retreats, and lo and behold, people came, in ever increasing numbers. People came, and we had to be grown-ups. That felt kind of weird, to be grown-ups and, plan retreat programs and figure out how to run what was increasingly a major center in the world, a major teaching center. And I think we all felt quite ill-equipped for this. There's something that has been very organic about the unfolding of the Gaia House story. It was never born of ambition. It was never born of, striving to have a major retreat center. It was always born of people's dedication and goodwill and love, And soon we found we had people who wanted to come and serve here. You know, we had people who wanted to come and practice here. We had to get zabutons, you know, and mats and all of these things just, you know, just to allow people to be here. And I think, you know, I think of the thousands of people who have contributed to this story. You know, the people who've served on the trust, you know, the people who served as managers and coordinators, everybody who served here on staff. You know, I think of the goodwill of all of the people who've come here, you know, to practice. You know, I think of the hundreds of thousands of hours of work periods, you know, where people have just in their own small way, you know, help the garden to grow, look after the space here, you know, leave a footprint behind them, you know, of genuine goodwill. It's like every retreat center, and I've been involved in growing a few. You know, it hasn't always been easy. You know, it's been a roller coaster. We've gone through times of, you know, pain and sorrow and you know, confusion, and times when, you know, people might have been hurt along the way. And, you know, for that, I do ask your forgiveness. That we were really doing our best. But in the end, I really feel that, you know, somehow Gaia House has emerged from all of those lovely times and difficult times, with a heart that's intact, you know, with a heart that's intact, you know. And I, you know, when I come here now and I see all of you, and all looking a little bit older, by the way, than when you first came here, as I'm sure I am. And I think of these decades, you know, and I truly feel at the moment that, you know, it's kind of like raising a child in many ways. You know, you go through your first hesitant steps, and, you know, then you have your moments of celebrating life, and then you've got adolescence, and it's terrible, you know, and then hopefully you come to some maturity and have learned a lot along the ways. And I think that is true. I think we have learned a lot along the ways about, you know, how to be respectful to one another, how to care for one another, how to collectively, you know, create this space together. And I know that when I teach retreats, you know, I know that there's nothing magical about it, that it's born of this, you know, really, really awesome collective intentionality that somehow creates these spaces of silence and learning and goodwill. And, you know, I think the benefits that are born of all the people who've come here over 40 years, I feel that those benefits probably touch the lives of many, those that we care about, those that we don't know, the ways that we move through the world, the integrity and the commitment to kindness and understanding. I feel it's an ever expanding circle of goodwill in the way that we touch the people in our lives. You know, I know for myself, you know, how much my life has been, well, you know, the Dharma is kind of all I've ever done since I was 17. So I have no idea how my life would have been without the Dharma. But I know it has been transforming. And, you know, it's what allows me personally, you know, to show up for lovely moments and for difficult moments. But in the midst of everything, that commitment to care and intentionality really is my, you know, my way of navigating through life. And I trust that is likely your way of navigating through life. Touching the world near to us and touching the world, you know, that's more distant with in all our actions, in our speech, in our thinking. You know, really, how do I want to touch the world? What kind of footprint do I want to leave upon the world? You know, at this point in my life, you know, people ask me, well, what's your legacy? I think legacy, you know, I never did anything on my own. You know, I never did anything on my own. You know, everything that I've ever been able to contribute to, it has always been a contribution, a collective contribution of so many people's dedication and goodwill. The other thing I just want to mention is, when I first came back to the West and started teaching with, a few other teachers, Joseph Goldstein and Sharon Salzberg and Jack Cornfield and a few others as being kind of the first generation of teachers in the West, we talked together about, what we felt it was good to leave behind and what we really wanted to keep hold of. And at that time, the one thing, we were happy to leave behind, many of the cultural associations and rituals and languaging. But the one thing that we really felt dedicated to was keeping alive the tradition of dana, the tradition of generosity. And for me, it is so wonderful to see what is being born of that commitment to generosity. For years I've been a guiding teacher at IMS and involved in Spirit Rock, involved in Beatenberg in Switzerland. And, you look around these places that all had their own humble beginnings, but, who all had this commitment to dana, commitment to this tradition of generosity. And I am astonished and so deeply touched by what has been born of that commitment to generosity. And in so many ways, it's kept these Dharma centers, these places of teaching, it's kept them, as being places that are quite unique in this world and in our cultures where, everything is priced and valued upon what you get. And I see that tradition of generosity is what has run through all of these Dharma centers, including Gaia House. And it's something so alive today. And, I think when people come here, they realize they're coming into a place that's being born of others' generosity, and they leave their own contribution behind for those who come here after them in the kind of care and the freely giving of their energy and time and commitment that they cultivate in this space. And I think this really is something to marvel at, is really something to celebrate. So I think today, in celebrating these 40 years of, as I mentioned, add another 10 years onto that, these 50 years or more of Gaia House's emergence, I think we're also celebrating, so many of those principles and values that have really been at the foundation of this place. And I think that have really ensured that it can grow and can flourish, and that the people, all those who come here, can also grow and flourish and, keep alive that sense of generosity in all that we do, in all the ways that we touch the world. I think without that tradition of dana, I don't think the Buddha Dharma would have survived for 2,500 years. And I think not only has it survived, but of course it has spread to touch the lives of so many. And I think truly rooted in this foundation of celebrating goodness, celebrating goodwill, celebrating generosity and kindness. And it is these principles, and not so much the buildings, it is these principles that have really allowed this teaching to flourish, and allowed so many who come here. And I'm sure everyone in this room has been touched in some way by the deep values that underlie this tradition and this teaching. So I thank you. I thank you, everyone in this room, for all of the ways that you have contributed, all that you have given. I thank all of those who aren't here, who have also been here in some way, either practicing or serving. I thank you for all that you have given, because it makes a difference. And being here to celebrate with everyone.
Thank you, Christina. And thank you for all the people who have contributed to make this day happen to this point, which includes a number of online teachers who have contributed short videos to celebrate with us.